What is your greatest accomplishment in life, sir?
Yes. So as we all need to answer, it's obviously got to be the family, right? There's no question that, I'm very fortunate that my wife has been so supportive of me and my business and getting to build almost a 20-year career now. And just, the family that we've built through that. Two kids, two great kids. We have a lot of fun together. And yeah, that's why we do this, right? Working
Hmm.
nights, weekends is for them. So again, very, very, very fortunate to have that. I think that any other answer, not everybody's got the same fortunes, good fortunes that I have, but you got to make the most of what you do have.
All right, I am Tony Toich with Keller Williams Atlanta Perimeter, and today I am sitting down with the top producer out of Boston. Fantastic, very kind gentleman. We have tried numerous times to connect, and finally, we are getting the chance to sit down and have a conversation about this crazy game called real estate, and maybe just a little bit about life. Get to know each other just a little bit. Because my goal as a realtor, beyond just building great relationships with agents all over the country, is to help us all get a little bit better at our profession, so that we can, service our clients at a higher level, and maybe, just maybe, make a little more money in the process, which is always desirable, right? So, all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video interview. Check it out, and let's see where it goes. That was a pretty solid intro right there. I don't think I need a second take. I'm going to go ahead and be happy with my first take. And hey, while I'm at it, I may as well plug this. Thinking about we have a client that's thinking about moving here to the Atlanta area. Guess what? I pay 35% referral fees. You heard that right. 35%. Not 25, not 30, 35. Boom. All close business. So, like I said, my goal is to help other agents make more money. That's one way you can do that right there. This is how busy our lives get. Like right now, like full disclosure, I feel like hell right now.
I'm
But I
sorry,
wasn't
dude.
gonna. It is what it is, right? Like, luckily, hey, we're on Zoom. We could do this. I can hold it together for 20 minutes, and even when I'm not 100%, I still kick ass. So I'm good with it. I've got that listing appointment that I had last week. I've got the pricing presentation for them at 7 o'clock.
You're doing a
So
two-stepper. You're doing a two-step on that.
yeah, well, the I knew the tax records were off, and
Mm.
I got to present a lot of evidence because they want to way overprice their home.
Mm.
And I just got to be able to look, it's not going to work. And here's why. I said,
Sure.
but here's the thing, it's $1 million home.
Okay.
I'm going to take the listing because I
100%.
don't
Why
want,
wouldn't you?
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Because I don't want some jackass, pardon my language, to take the listing that's going to tell them that number and then they drop the price later. But
Yeah.
that being said, I also am going to say to look, here's what the numbers show. Legit, and these are very like logically, like if you look at these comps, they're
Yep.
going to have to agree that yes, my comps are correct. And so I'll say I will price it at your number and to do the work. And if we sell it later, a year or two down the road, great. But I want to prove to you that I'm going to be here for the long run. But I don't think the market, even if someone does come in and say, "Hey, we'll buy it for 1.15," when it does not appraise, which it will not, um, then there's going to be another negotiation. So
Yeah.
I'll explain all that to them and see what they say. And who knows? Maybe they were testing me to say, "Yeah, we want 1.5." That's what I'm really
I mean,
hoping. What would you consider in the 20 years that you've been in business your biggest mistake, and
mhm.
what did you learn from that mistake?
Yeah. So I think that this is something that I continue to kind of think about and talk about all the time, which is like not thinking big enough, right?
Mhm.
There's so much that we kind of do in our own minds in terms of like setting these ceilings on our potential or what we can accomplish. And I would say that's kind of my biggest mistake, was thinking that I needed to do something before I could do something else, right? That I needed to prove something to somebody other than myself, in terms of whether it's sales, experience, you name it. Because I think this business is not about chronology, right? There's people who come in to this business, have no experience, and they, just are uber focused, and they just crush it, right? They take
Mhm.
market share really, really quickly. And it just reminds you that there's like, we say, oh, we can't sell luxury properties because we're not selling this, we're not selling that. And I think that if I was a bit more of a strategic thinker earlier, because I was pretty young when I got into business, right? Like, you know, there was no there was no question that that was a limiter was just my age, right? People would ask me how old I was. Now people ask me when I'm going into a nursing home. So, so like, I mean, the fact is that like that's kind of the reality that I would tell a lot of the agents that I work with. Just like just think bigger, right?
Yeah.
And I think within our company, I think that is a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oddly enough, last night I was reading MREA handbook, and that was one of the things they talked about. Like it was like think big early on because you want to
Yes.
plan for the big. Like if you're kind of fumbling and failing forward into the
Yeah.
big business, it's not really going to happen. So if you're thinking big earlier, that is going to be key for building a bigger business and getting to where you want to be.
For
Um,
sure.
and when you talk about being super focused, I think absolutely 100%. When those agents can come in and you know be successful quickly, but it's also
Hmm.
being super focused is key. And I've noticed by staying super focused, like the year before last, not this last year, the year before was not the best year. I was kind of focusing my attention and not the best way I could have. It wasn't a great year, but moving into this year, I took bold twice last year, which
Hmm.
really helped me stay focused all year long into this year. Even when the business was up and running, and foreclosing this month,
It's
my
awesome.
best first quarter ever, I still continued, no matter all the contracts that were going on, I still continued to keep doing the lead gen. And I stayed
Hmm.
focused on that. And that is setting up. I mean, again, my year should uh, I think I'm on track to double last year's sales.
Well, that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, but I think that that's where like we often get so busy and so focused on the deal ahead of us that we're
Mhm.
not like lead genning for like the deal 90 days from now. I think I don't know if you've read the book The Gap and the Gain. Like for
No.
me, that The Gap and the Gain is awesome. Like they have like three different books. These two guys, Benjamin. This book is game changing. So if you haven't read The Gap and the Gain, highly recommend. Instead of like aiming for like trying to get to the horizon, it's just talking about like
Hmm.
giving yourself like some grace and like what are three wins that you had today? What are three things that you did today that that are going to make your business better? They're going to make you personally better, whatever, right? And just having that mindset where instead of beating yourself up all the time that you didn't ever reach that horizon,
Hmm.
you're going to be in a much better place, sort of, emotionally and and in other ways in terms of business.
I think.
So
Oh,
good for you.
celebrating the wins regularly
Yeah,
is absolutely key. I mean, for me, when I was getting started, it was just adding a contact to my database, right? Like, I mean, the
totally.
goal was to get 2,000 contacts in my database because I had less than 50. Getting one, like yay, right?
Yeah,
Celebrate, but it is a big deal because over time now I have over 2,000, and I'm able to
nice
start being strategic about how I'm attacking those.
for
So,
sure.
what is your superpower, right? What makes you good at what you do?
Wow. Yeah. So I think superpower wise, right? Like my assistant and I left a listing appointment recently, and she was so kind to be like, "You're so good at that," right? Meaning like I'm really good at naturally connecting with people,
Hmm.
whether through all walks of life, and just really trying to be that connector, and not so much be a chameleon because it's not like I'm changing who I am when I'm with people as much as I am just really just trying to listen to what they're saying and allow for them to talk, because I really am genuinely, I do, I will be honest, right? Like I love people. Like for me, I'm so fortunate that I get to do this every single day because
Hmm.
we're in a people business. And for me, being able to be in a people business, that's where I get energy. And
Yeah.
that's, I think that, it's kind of like funny because you don't know that that's a superpower that you can leverage to make to make a business out of. Cause
Hmm.
there's not like, I'm not swinging a hammer. Right. So yeah, that's the superpower.
And I think, I mean, you already answered it. I'm going to dive back to it. But in your
No, you're fine,
opinion,
dude.
what makes you good at connecting with people? Because I want to hammer
I
this
mean,
on the I want to
yeah,
hammer this on the nail on the head. But
no, no, no.
I want to
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
I'm
No,
going
I
to get
get
back
it.
to that.
Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting question because like I would say that for me, like I think I'm genuinely curious about people, right? Like I think that I really want to know more about you. I want to know more about, everybody that I encounter because
Hmm.
that's sort of the richness of life, right? Is that, we're all so different and there's something to be learned and gleaned and just that shared experience that we have of getting to do what we do, whether it's in real estate or in anything our clients do, and just having that opportunity to really kind of be curious, right? Because I'm always in curiosity, right? I'm always eager to sort of
Mhm.
have that be a part of the day, right? And because let's put it this way, back in 2000 whatever, I started hosting trivia, right?
Mhm.
And I was doing that as much as 4 nights a week at bars around Boston. And part of that is why. Well, it was because I love just I love trivia, right? And along those lines, why? Well, because I'm curious. I'm a curious person, right? So whether that's about learning about stuff or people, it's one and the same. All right, and that's where I feel like I can connect with people who are not like me and people who are very much like me.
Mhm. And what you had said before, you said it kind of in a different way, but this is the reason I want to hammer on it is
Yeah.
because you listen to what they say and you allow them to talk, which is the key to getting to know people and getting to know their the motivation behind what they're doing. So that's so incredibly important. And for newer agents or any agents, when they're trying to think of what do I say next, they're not involved in the conversation; they're involved in
Mhm.
the script. And so that's just that ability to actually listen and then roll with the punches in conversation is an incredibly a very very powerful tool.
If you're keen on building that skill, I think what you should do as an agent or just as a person is, listen to good interviewers, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's people who are legendary interviewers, in the last, 20, 50, whatever years, and you can see how they do their homework on the person in advance. Not to name drop. I mean, again, some people are going to talk about Oprah or Barbara Walters. In all
Mhm.
fairness, in all honesty, I think one of the best interviewers is Howard Stern, right? And I know that that's kind of a controversial thing, but in his more older years, he's gotten people that are really really a list celebs, and people in society, and he just asks really really good questions, and I think it's
Yeah.
about asking really good questions.
One of my favorite interviewers of all time is Jon Stewart. The man is so
Oh,
incredible. He is so incredibly intelligent. All right. So, what advice? Let's talk about agents, right? Trying to
yeah,
build
let's
their
do it.
business, right? From what you've learned, what you've seen, especially kind of what we're going and where we're at now.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to agents in this market, as far as their business?
So let me tell a quick story, right? If that's okay.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So years and years ago, I got a text or a phone call from an agent in my office, and he was like, "Hey, do you have?" I think at the time he had asked me if I had an elder law or an estate attorney, and I said I don't. So what I do, I just went on Google, I typed in the first result for elder law, and I called the first result. And
Hmm.
I'd never done this before, in all fairness, right? Like for me, doing this was like I was clearly not me in that moment. And I said, "Hey, somebody just asked me for this person, and I don't have that in my Rolodex. Do you want to get a coffee?" Now, the reason I share this was because that one phone call has led to let's just be very simple about it, tens of thousands of dollars worth of business. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and it's ultimately a result of doing things that are uncomfortable but realizing that you have absolutely nothing to lose by being putting yourself in uncomfortable situations is how you're going to grow. If he had said
Yep.
no, I may not be sitting here right now. I may not be getting to have this conversation with you, not because I wouldn't have still done business, but it's changed the trajectory of my business is just making one phone call. So to me, it's a question of what happens if I made two phone calls, three, four, five? What if I had made more and more phone calls and made more and more relationships earlier in my career? I think that that's where you as an agent, need to be really focused on how many relationships can you build at every moment of your career, and you're going to build different relationships at different points, and you're going to be able,
Hmm.
and the focus really needs to be on not that this person added just value in my life, but it was a question of how did I solve for something for them, right? How was I adding value in that relationship for that particular estate attorney or elder law attorney? And part of it was like, hey, he might have been listing properties himself, and that's not really what his job is, right? And I was able. He met me and said, hey, this guy seems like he's got more than just a pulse. For you as an agent, you have to figure out, hey, how can you serve other people and be in service of others at a high
Yep.
level? That's going to enable you to say they're going to realize that hey, you're not in it for yourself because you shouldn't be, right? Like this is not about the money. This is about how do you enrich somebody else's life through the work that we get to do in real estate and beyond.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And yeah, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. We talk about that all the time, and that is really powerful. And that also goes to like you talk about, that comes from a growth mindset. Any other advice for agents before I kind of move on to the home
Yeah,
sellers,
I
home
mean,
buyers,
I
what
think
you're
that
seeing on.
I'll be. So let me use an example from today, right? So there's an agent that I've effectively, she and I are friends, and she's younger in the business than I am, but I've effectively coached her for the last however many years, right? And she called me today. She was talking about a client, and I basically was trying to focus on the fact that it really comes down to just being confident. This business is about self confidence. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this business is about just believing in yourself that you are providing value, and that's it, right? Like for her, she feels she lacks that at times, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I need her and other agents and even myself at times to just believe in yourself. And some of that is not about other people validating that, but you have to be like very, very clear that like you have value. And if somebody doesn't see that, shame on them, right? They're not the right
Mm-hmm.
person for you, right? You're going to find your
Yep.
tribe. So I think in that regard, like I think this is really about, I always say to people like, when you're going on listing appointments, right? Like you have to be prepared to go into those listing appointments and basically always be like Muhammad Ali, right? Like, I know George Foreman just passed away, but let's just use Muhammad Ali for a moment and say, hey, he walked around and saying, I'm the greatest, right? Was
Yep.
he the greatest? Sure, at times he was. But when you go into listing appointments, right? Like you have to believe when you're talking to that seller that you are the best person for the job, right? Period. If you
Mm-hmm.
do not believe
Yep.
that, why would they hire you, right? So
Yeah.
you have to have that kind of, not like ego or bravado and be a jerk about it, but just feeling confident in yourself and who you are. I think is really the core takeaway that I want people to have when they're thinking
Yeah.
about this business.
Absolutely. And having that confidence, we talk about the five jobs of realtor, right? Script rehearsal role play is such an often overlooked um, portion of our job. And if you do the research, you do the work, you do the script rehearsal role play. Like I weekly do exactly what to say. We have a exactly what to say role play group that we, get on every Friday morning, 8:30 in the morning. And that has been such a powerful tool because I have used that over and over and over to overcome objections. Yeah, it's going to come from rehearsing
Mm-hmm.
your listing presentation, your buyer's presentation, and practicing the objection handling. So, all right, let's move on to home sellers, home buyers right now. What kind of
Sure.
because you're still in a seller's market, right, up there in Boston?
Depends on the day. I
Oh,
mean,
really?
it depends on where you are in and around the city. It depends on
Mhm.
what product you're trying to sell, right? There's
Okay.
there's so I think that the comment that I'll make now is like the market. Some people are swearing about it and saying it's a shit show. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on here, but
Yes, trust me,
okay.
I've been doing it. Like, you see some of the language
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
back
that's right.
behind
That's right.
me.
Yeah, yeah, for
What's
sure,
up?
for sure. Just didn't know if it was family friendly. But my point there is like just to be clear, right? Like for me, a lot of this is some people say it's a shit show. I'm just saying the market is effectively inconsistent. Okay.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, some properties are selling with multiple offers in cash or effectively clean, no contingencies on those offers that are winning, or you have some properties that are sitting on the market. And the question is why? Right. So some of that is kind of the hole in the donut concept that I talk about a lot with sellers, where in the city there's a little bit more softness, a little bit more weakness for certain property types, where there's like maybe a
Mhm.
glut of condos and there's less condo buyers in certain markets. By comparison, when you look into the suburban markets in and around Boston, I mean those markets are generally on fire, fielding 10 offers per place because there's just still a lack of inventory, and that's
Mhm.
been largely unchanged for a really, really long time. Although, last fall was a bit of a softer time, but people who were buyers should have
Mhm.
been in the market and they weren't. And now they're all
Mhm.
back. And with increased rates and the spring kind of upon us, like they're still fighting, they're back out and fighting, anchorman style in the streets for places, right? So again, like
Classic.
that's yeah. I mean, I mean, that's really how I feel like you know. I joke about that being like what my clients are going to have to do to get a place other than giving up their firstborn, right? So for us, right, like we just have to be very clear that it's not one type of market and every single property is going to deliver a different outcome to a seller, or for that matter, a buyer has to approach that, with some degree of nuance.
Yeah, it's kind of the exact same thing. You say, hey, every single deal is different. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there are kind of some generalities across the board. You can say, like you're talking the suburbs. Yeah, the well priced, move-in ready homes in the good areas. Yeah, they're quick. But I've got homes that are sitting on the market that are in great shape and actually not
Hmm.
terribly priced. They're just a
Yeah.
higher price point. We're going to go and I'm going to throw a curveball at you. I decided I need to start asking this when I put this in the question list because this is kind of a fun one. So I'm going to see
Let's
if
do
you
it.
have any good buyer or seller tips or fun seller tips. And what I do, like at the closing table, whenever I'm at the closing table,
Yeah.
I say to whoever's buying the home, I said, all right, do you have your moving day plan? They say, yes. I said, okay, perfect. Got one big moving day. What I want you to do is the first thing you do when you move into the house is make your bed because you don't want to be unpacking all day long. It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning. You're completely exhausted. And now you got to set up your bed. You got to make the bed. You got to shower. You want to be able to shower and crash. And people love
Wow.
that one. They're like, yes,
Wow.
I'm, all the other agents are like, I'm stealing that. I'm like,
I
steal
am
it.
stealing
All
that. I am stealing
right.
that. Yeah. I'm going to tell him Tony said to do that. It's going to become
So
like,
you got,
I'm going to give you branding around that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
You give them
Yeah.
my cards. If you ever moved
Yeah. Yeah.
to Georgia, so you got
Yeah.
anything kind of like that?
Man. Do like something that smart? I don't know that I do. I mean, look, I think that so here's the thing, right? So one of the things that we've tried to do, I went and saw an agent at KW speak at Family Reunion years ago, and she inspired me to kind of Vanessa Pollock out of Jersey, and she had kind of inspired me to sort of reframe the way that we approach closing gifts. I'll talk about that if you want. Hopefully that's okay. So
Yeah.
basically, in lieu of giving people like bottles of alcohol, which we still try to do occasionally, not everybody drinks, as you know. Um,
Mhm.
we went from giving gift baskets with that to donating to a charity of our client's choice at closing, right? And
Nice.
we basically, can do one or two charities, local, national, international charities, as a way to kind of give back because we're very fortunate to work with the haves, and sometimes we're not as able to do charitable work in our day to
Hmm.
day, right?
Well, awesome. So you have any final thought? We got. I took up your full 30 minutes that I told us would take. You got any final thoughts? Yeah.
Final thoughts. Yeah. Let's see. So let's see. I think that it'll be very interesting to see, kind of how buyer agency survives because of the NRA stuff that we're contending with, right? I think that
Hmm.
there's been a lot of discussions about clear cooperation and other components in and around social media and just in the news in general. Some of the stuff that consumers don't really kind of grasp in the same way. I think that it's
Hmm.
important for agents to sort of really, really understand what's happening, and I'm not trying to get super deep here. It's just more about we are, I think, at an inflection point in the business that I think is not to be ignored because
Yeah.
what's going on right now is that we had something happen that is anti-consumer, in my opinion, right? And it was not a result of legislative action, which legislation typically seeks to protect consumers,
Hmm.
from unsavory characters or just protect them from a good public policy standpoint. Instead, this was a result of litigation, and it's
Yep.
important to understand that there's a clear difference for consumers and for agents to be able to explain this effectively to their clients. That hey, what's happened is not necessarily going to serve you when you're going to the market. There is a clear and unquestionable value that good buyer agents can provide. And it's not about cost savings. It's really about, protecting the consumer and, providing that fiduciary obligation that we do have in the long term. So I think that agents really need to be very, very clear on their value and being able to relay that to consumers because some consumers, not all, will choose the cheapest option. Not everybody, as I said, but I think it is
Hmm.
important as an agent to really be understanding what's going on right now in this moment as we're seeing the spring market with different rules and regs that people are trying to kind of grapple with. So,
Yeah.
certainly not trying to be doomsday-ish because I don't think that the industry at large is at risk. But if I'm an agent today, hey, I'm fighting for those listings, even harder. Not that you shouldn't be fighting for listings. Listings are our bread and butter, but your focus as an agent really should be about making sure that if you do have buyer opportunities, that you're able to really clearly convey value and explain the buyer agency relationship much more crystal, in much more crystal clear clarity.
Absolutely. And you talk about like, buying something that is hundreds of thousands of dollars, let's call it half a million, and to save 1%, on if something goes major goes wrong, that 1% that you save could cost you. I mean, for instance, I saved one of my clients $20,000 because of a bad septic tank. Right, that just
Yeah.
happened a couple months ago.
But yeah, thanks
Awesome.
so much for taking the time, and I'm grateful that we got to finally meet in person.
All right. Awesome. So I was talking about not feeling good earlier. Yeah, I am absolutely beat up today. And, that's one of the things when it comes to doing the work and being focused on your goals. When you want something bad enough, it doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you are hurting. It doesn't matter if you are emotionally down. You keep going after your goals. And having a powerful big why is fundamental when it comes to chasing big goals. And that was one of the things Ilya said was to think big. He didn't think big early enough in his career. And if you think big and you plan for big, then if you don't get all the way there, guess what? If you get 75% of the way there, then you're probably well beyond where you would have been if you didn't think big. And that helps you build a bigger life because ultimately I'm not in this career. I love what I do. I love helping people, but I'm not in this career to sell homes and to make a lot of money. I'm in this to help people because I know that the success that I can achieve in this business will help me live the life that I want to live. It will help me provide the life that I want to provide for my daughter and help her live the life that she wants to live. So think big and stay laser focused on your goals. That's another thing. You see agents that come out and be successful quickly because they're laser focused and they do the work. How focused are you on your goals? Are you doing the work every single day? Are you honest about doing the work? And finally, I think one of the things that he brought up, he's like, he asked when I asked him a question, he said, "Can I tell a story?" Stories are so incredibly important to connecting as human beings. So if you can relate to your clients through a story, I think that's way better than just saying, "Here are my statistics. I can sell at 101%." Great, you sell at 101% of original list price. But maybe tell the stories behind that and how that affected your clients, how happy they were. I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm having a hard time pulling them all together right now. So that being said, I'm Tony Deutsch, Keller Williams, Atlanta Perimeter, here in Atlanta, Georgia. My goal is to be a long-term resource for all my clients. My goal is to be a long-term resource and referral partner for all the people that are watching this show. If you watch to the end, awesome. Hopefully you like, comment, subscribe on my channel. And got someone that's moving here to Atlanta. I'd love to have a conversation. Stay motivated.